Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I am the Reverend John Cullinan, your minister here. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, wherever you are sitting right now, here or at home watching the live stream, you are welcome into this community. Again, a welcome to our live stream audience. Thank you for tuning in again, and a special welcome to visitors and newcomers that we have among us this morning. I'd love to talk with you after the service, answer any questions that you might have about our community here. You can join me for a cup of coffee in the fellowship hall because coffee is back this week. Everybody give a round of applause for the hopefully here to stay. Also be sure to say hello to Lauren Marcus, our new coffee helper. She is starting with us today as well. She's already in the fellowship hall getting to work. And now, please take a moment to center yourselves. Feel yourself grounded where you are, connected to the earth. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out. And let us begin. Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration and consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing to be changed today, however we are changed. Come, let us worship together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 108. Please remain standing and join in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated. A candle is lit once again this morning for the people of Ukraine. For all our joys, all our sorrows, whether we share them with one another or we hold them close and quiet in our hearts, let us be together in a moment of silence. Please join with me now in a spirit of prayer and reflection. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to ourselves, to each other, and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. Today, let the warmth and the welcome of this circle radiate among us and out into the wider community. May we be reminded this day of our calling to welcome in the stranger, to bind up the brokenhearted, to feed the hungry, to embrace the lonely. May we be reminded of our calling to be the hands of the Spirit, transforming the world as it is into the world as it could be. Let this place and this day be the source of our courage and strength, lifting our spirits and opening our hearts wide. May we carry the source of the Spirit found here this day throughout the week to come, until we can be in one another's presence again. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Please remain seated for our meditation.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I'm trying to see how this, oh, there we go. Okay. So this morning, We are talking about faith in action, and I'm going to read a story about an historical UU woman, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who put her faith to action. So as we know, March celebrates Women's History, and International Women's Day is this Tuesday. And so this is the story of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, one of our historical Unitarian women. Nearly 200 years ago, a little girl was born in the city of Baltimore near Chesapeake Bay. Her name was Frances Ellen Watkins. When Frances Ellen was born in 1825, there weren't any cars and only very few trains. When people wanted to go somewhere, they either rode horses or walked, or they might go for a ride in a carriage or travel the oceans in a tall masted ship with white sails. On the day that Frances Ellen was born, her mother said, "Frances Ellen, you are the most beautiful baby in the world, with your curly brown hair and your dark brown eyes and your soft brown skin, because that's the kind of thing mothers say." And Frances Ellen said, "Nah," because that's the kind of thing babies say. Then her mother said, "Frances Ellen, you are the luckiest baby in the world, because we are not slaves. You have been born free." And Frances Ellen said, "Ah," because she was only a baby, and she didn't understand what free meant. She didn't understand what slave meant. She didn't know that in 1825, slavery was legal in the southern parts of the United States of America, including the city of Baltimore. She didn't know that people with dark skin, brown skin like hers, could be bought and sold. She didn't know that children, even little children, could be taken away from their mom and dad, and they would never see each other again. She didn't know that slaves had to work hard all day, every day, and never got paid and were never allowed to leave. She didn't know that sometimes slaves were beaten or made to wear chains, or didn't have good food to eat or good clothes to wear. She didn't know that slave children often didn't have toys, not even one. Frances Ellen was only a baby, and she didn't know about any of that. But her mother knew. Someday, her mother said, kissing the curly brown hair and looking into the dark brown eyes and touching the soft brown skin, someday everyone will be free. Someday. When Frances Ellen was older, she went to school. One of her teachers was Uncle William Watkins. He said to the class, "Children, you are very lucky to be here and to be allowed to learn." The children all nodded, serious and quiet, because even though they were only 5 and 6 years old, they already knew. They knew that it was against the law for an enslaved person to learn how to read and write. They knew that most schools didn't let dark-skinned children, even free dark-skinned children, in. Frances Ellen and all the other girls were twice as lucky because they knew that many schools wouldn't let girls in, only boys. "Someday," William Watkins said, "someday all children will be allowed to learn, black and white, girl and boy. There will be schools for everyone someday." Then he smiled at them and opened his book, "But you, lucky children, can start learning today." And Frances Ellen learned. She learned math and spelling and English and Latin and Greek, and she learned history and geography and music, but what she liked to do most of all was write. She wrote stories and poems and essays whenever she could. She studied hard and did her homework every day because she knew she wasn't going to be able to stay in school for long. Her family needed money. When she was 14, she left school and got a job. She lived with a Quaker family and helped take care of their children, and she cooked and cleaned. Someday, Frances Ellen said to herself as she hung up the laundry on the clothesline or chopped carrots or scrubbed the floors, someday, children will be able to stay in school longer and learn all they can someday. But even with chopping carrots and scrubbing floors, Frances Ellen still found time to read. The Quaker family she lived with let her use their library because just like her uncle, they believed that everyone should be allowed to learn. Frances Ellen found time to write, too. She wrote stories and poems of her own. When she was 20, her book, Autumn Leaves, was published and sold in bookstores. A woman wrote this, some people said. A colored woman? No, that's impossible. It's too good. Someday, Frances Ellen said to herself as she dipped her pen in the inkwell to write another poem, someday, people will know that the work you can do doesn't depend on the color of your skin. People will know that both men and women can write someday. But someday didn't look like it was coming anytime soon, and so Frances Ellen decided she would help it along. She wrote poems and stories and sold over 10,000 books. She helped people who were running away from slavery by sending them money she'd made from her writing, even though helping them meant she could have been put in jail. She traveled from state to state, giving speeches to crowds of people, white people, black people, women, and men. And she told them that slavery was evil and should be against the law. And finally, after more poems, after more speeches by Frances Ellen and by many other people, after 15 years and a civil war that nearly ripped the country in two, finally, slavery was made illegal in every part of the land. Everyone was free. Frances Ellen's mother's someday had finally come. But there was still a lot of work to be done to make all of those other somedays happen. So Frances Ellen got to work. She traveled to the southern parts of the United States and helped start schools for all those people who hadn't been allowed to go to school before. She worked with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton to change the laws so that women would be allowed to vote, just like men. She worked with the Women's Christian Temperance Union to try to stop people from drinking too much alcohol and then not having any money left for food. She worked with different churches to feed the hungry and teach the children. Of all those churches, the one that she chose to join was the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia. She became a Unitarian because she knew that Unitarians worked hard to make the world a better place and to make those somedays come true. Well, here we are. It's been nearly 100 years since Frances Ellen died, and many of her somedays have arrived. It's not legal to keep slaves anymore in the United States. Women can vote, all children are allowed to go to school, and they can stay there until they're 18. We know that the work people can do doesn't depend on the color of their skin or whether they're a boy or a girl. But there are still many somedays that haven't yet arrived. There are still people who are hungry. There are still children who don't have good schools. There is still a lot of work to be done. So just like Frances Ellen, we Unitarian Universalists need to get to work and make those somedays come true. This is one of Frances Ellen's poems, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper's poems. Bury Me in a Free Land. Look it up. It's a great one. So she was an abolitionist, writer, lecturer, teacher, and one of the first African-American women to be published in the United States. She joined the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia and donated much of her writing income to the Underground Railroad. This is one of her quotes: "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity." And we know there's a lot of work to do against racism still, right? So this is from her Songs of the People, and I'm going to read it. "Let me make the songs for the people, songs for the old and the young, songs to stir like a battle cry wherever they are sung. Let me make the songs for the weary amid life's fever and fret, till hearts shall relax their tension and careworn brows forget. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong to hush the jangle and discords of sorrow, pain, and wrong." And that is Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, a woman who lived out her UU values and her faith in action.
I was going to say that this song was by Guy Clark, but somebody beat me to it. Guy Clark was a Texas songwriter until he passed away. Worth looking into as well. 8 years old with a flour sack cape tied all around his neck. He climbed up on the garage, he's figuring what the heck. Screwed his courage up so tight, but the whole thing come unwound. He got a running start, and bless his heart, he headed for the ground. Well, he's one of those who knows that life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath, and always trust your cape. Now he's all grown up with a flour sack cape tied all around his dreams. He's full of piss and vinegar, busting at the seams. He licked his finger, checked the wind, it's gonna be do or die. He wasn't scared of nothing, he's pretty sure he can fly. Well, he's one of those who knows that life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath, and always trust your cape. Now he's old and gray with a flour sack cape tied around his head. He's still jumping off the garage and will be till he's dead. All these years the people said he was acting like a kid. He did not know he could not fly, so he did. Well, he's one of those who knows that life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath, and always trust your cape. Well, he's one of those who knows that life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms, hold your breath, and always trust your cape. Spread your arms, hold your breath, trust your cape.
Thank you, Aaron. I wonder this morning how many of you have ever had a chance to take the Myers-Briggs test before? A few, okay. I've had the opportunity several times throughout my career, and I know it's not a predictive test, but it is pretty good as a self-reflection tool. And though sometimes pieces of the spectrum waver back and forth, two things remain constant. One, my introversion score is way out there. It's in the canyon. It is at the bottom of the canyon is where it is. And two, on the perceiving versus judging scale, I'm a very hard J. I am quick to judge. So that is my struggle day after day, to not look at things going wrong in the universe and just going, ugh, again? That's bad. Every day in every way is a struggle for me sometimes to not just veer the vehicle completely off the road and steer straight towards J-land and never look back and just take up residence there. And what that means is when the universe is not giving me the evidence I need for the life I want to live, for the messages I preach each week, for the community I'm trying to build, when all of the evidence shows that to be possibly not possible, it's a struggle some weeks for me not to get up on a Sunday morning and just deliver the sermon. Well, we're doomed. Go in peace, I guess. That is the struggle. And yet, somehow I managed to not give in to that instinct. Somehow I managed to get up Sunday after Sunday and give a message. And how do I find that resolve? Where is that coming from? I asked myself that question a few weeks ago, and what came to me was, well, because it would be a disservice to you and to me to get up here and just say we're doomed. You've got to come up with something of substance and hope. But that answer is just a why. It doesn't really explain how I managed to get up Sunday after Sunday and do this. Preach a message that not only I want to give you, but I need to hear, and that I still somehow manage to believe in. I haven't put much thought before into how I get to that point. And then my colleagues at Soul Matters, where we pull our monthly themes from, handed us the theme for March of renewing faith. And all of a sudden, I had to stop and think about just where all of that resolve and the continuance of my own faith was coming from. It was an opportunity for me to reflect, and I think start to gather some idea of how it is we all continue on. Because I get up Sunday after Sunday, and you show up here Sunday after Sunday, and somehow, despite all the evidence, we continue to persist. So the question first is, what is this faith we are talking about? I could go back to my little mythological, metaphysical, anthropomorphized story of the Big Bang that I like to use, of the great heart at the center of all things, that in an attempt to know itself has sent us out into the universe to be the observers and become more fully human and more fully connected to one another. And that's fine, but it falls down a bit when I'm trying to get at the heart of what faith really is. And I think if we're going to strip it down to its barest meaning, to the heart, to the essential of what we're talking about, it's that idea that one of the things that makes us most human is our ability to imagine a future and to move toward that direction without really knowing how we're going to get there. And sometimes we can make some short-term predictions based on the evidence of the world around us and know what the outcomes are going to be. But over the long term, there's no real clear picture of how we get there. Our clarity stops. All we feel at that point is just some kind of magnet pulling us forward, what I've called for myself the tug, the thing that pulls at my heart to keep me going. And this call, the sense of being pulled forward, that's the first element in a practiced faith. This is the compass of our title that points to our desired end. And where is this pull coming from? Well, I leave that up to you this morning, obviously. Some call it God, some might just call it the energy of the universe, ancestor wisdom, deep inner reflection, that life passed through the fire of thought that Emerson talks about. For today, let's just call it the something that calls us forward. And in our lives, we get to a moment where the something pulls us, where we get a sense of that compass that is leading us forward. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, we name it. We give it a theme, a title. Perhaps our compass is kindness, or reducing suffering in the world, or building the beloved community, or, as mine has grown over the years, the world just doesn't have to be this way. If we follow the compass, we get to a point where we're ready to unmoor the boat and sail out in the direction of that future we are imagining, but we may hesitate at some point. Martha Nussbaum, the American philosopher, several years ago in an interview with Bill Moyers, once said that being human means accepting promises from other people and trusting that other people will be good to you. And I as well kind of superimpose the something on top of that. But when that trusting is too much to bear, it is always possible to retreat into the thought, I'll just live into my own comfort, for my own revenge, for my own anger, and I just won't be a member of society anymore. And that really means I won't be a human being anymore. But if we're feeling the pull and we're feeling the call of our own humanity in the midst, we set sail. We put our trust in the promise that's made in our dialogue between the something and our own self. But here's the thing about trust. No matter what we're trusting in, we're either placing it in finite, fallible beings, or we're placing it in an infinite, ungrasped something that we cannot fully contemplate or comprehend. We are putting our trust in, as we like to say in our theological circles, the great mystery. But no matter where we're placing our trust, either way, to put that trust in something is to take a risk, is to risk being disappointed or falling into outright despair because a promise may be broken. And sometimes when that happens, we decide we've made the wrong first step, we've gone in the wrong direction, the journey isn't what we were expecting, and we come to a point of crisis. Nussbaum, in this interview with Bill Moyers, continues to be a good human being is to have a kind of openness to the world, an ability to trust uncertain things beyond your own control that can lead you to be shattered in very extreme circumstances for which you were not to blame. That says something very important about the human condition of the ethical life, that it is based on a trust in the uncertain and on a willingness to be exposed. It's based on being more like a plant than a jewel, something rather fragile, but whose very particular beauty is inseparable from its fragility. So we hit that point where we're shattered. We thought we knew how the world should be. We took a step in that direction. We set sail, and the universe or the people or whatever it is breaks its promise in a moment, doesn't catch us the way we thought we might be caught, and then we come to a crisis point. crisis of faith, dealing with the juxtaposition of our faith and the broken trust or the misplaced trust. Now, when we talk about a crisis of faith, it often sounds like a big kind of come to Jesus, make or break moment. It's a one-time thing, and it's going to make a big shift into who we are. But the truth is, these are not major events. Crises of faith happen all the time. I have several a year my own self because of the evidence of the world around me. And that's where I am when I get to the point where I'm struggling with what the sermon should be this week, what the message is that I need to hear and I need to share. Several times a year, I have that crisis. And what the crisis of faith really sounds like is, am I fooling myself? Is it true that maybe the universe doesn't care? Have I set myself up for disappointment by anthropomorphizing the chaos of the cosmos around me? How do I move on from there? What do I do with that? When I find myself in doubt like this is when I turn to the words of the great Australian theologian Nick Cave. You take the wisdom where you can get it. Cave, the leader of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, runs a blog as well called the Red Hand Files. And in it, he occasionally answers deep questions from his fan base. A couple of years ago, one of his fans in Croatia asked him if he prayed or not to find some sense out of chaos. And in the midst of a longer answer, he shares this: is this world cruel? I don't think so. I think this world is indifferent, and indifference is not cruelty. What connects me to you and you to every other sentient being in the universe is that the universe simply does not care about us. It does not act with malice or desire to harm us. It is simply unaffected by our condition. If one acknowledges this state of affairs, then it sets up a situation that allows us to make a simple choice. Either we respond to the indifference of the universe with self-pity and narcissism and live our lives in a cynical, pessimistic, and self-serving manner, or we stand tall, set our eyes clearly upon this unfeeling universe, and love it all the same, even though, or especially because, it doesn't love us. This act of cosmic defiance, of subversive optimism, of unconditional and insubordinate love is the greatest act of human beauty that we can perform. Stare at the indifference of the something and love it all the same, and take it from there. I love the notion of this as an act of cosmic defiance, and I want you to hold on to that image for just a second, because we here in our Unitarian Universalist world, we are great at holding anti-authoritarian ideas and the sense of being defiant in the face of the universe. That's a pretty big moment of anti-authoritarianism, and I think we should be able to embrace that as a concept of faith more easily than anything else. Perform the greatest act of human beauty. Love everything all the same. Double down on our faith. It's less a bold step into the future now than it is an admission of our finitude. We are working through trust issues now, but we still feel called forward. I want to note at this point Marcus Borg, the Episcopalian biblical scholar, who wrote several years ago about the Hebrew word for faith. in the Hebrew Scriptures is emunah. What makes the word interesting, he says, is that it's the sound that a baby donkey makes when it's calling for its mother. To appreciate that, you have to say emunah, so it sounds like that. If you want to hear the meaning of it, you need to say it like braying. The point being that faith in the Hebrew Bible is like a baby donkey calling out or crying for its mother. And so in that moment of continuing on in faith, a feeling called forward amidst the broken trust and trying to work through those trust issues, the next step we take is perhaps a cry out our own selves, a cry to the something, a complaint about feeling abandoned perhaps, or a cry out for sustenance or for comfort, safety, for aid, for just a sense of justice in the world wherever we can get it. Ma, the universe is being mean to me again. Make it stop. And in that, we start to find our resolve. Where does the resolve come from? From looking for trust that we can have a little more confidence in, for the trust that is closer to home, rooted a little more in the here and now. It's important to note at this point that Kierkegaard did not write about a leap of faith, as is popularly contended. In fact, the phrase doesn't appear anywhere in his works. But what he was talking about was a leap into faith, something different entirely. Leaping into a process, not something that will be carried in by some other power, but a work that we are engaging in, building a growing sense again of trust in the call of something, little by little and step by step. And that trust grows from the anchors that we can find in the here and now and place out for ourselves to hold us with a little more safety. And this is the point where I realized that the nautical theme I thought I was writing about when I came up with this title 8 weeks ago is actually more about mountaineering. And so I'm going to lay this metaphor out for you with all the benefit of the absolute zero knowledge I have about climbing. But here's how it works. We are leaping into something. We can see a horizon ahead of us and imagine what might be at the end of it. But to get there, we are crossing a chasm. And so we're taking a leap into that chasm to get there. And the only way we can do it safely is to find that point, that anchor, that moment that we have a little more confidence in trusting in. So we can take that first small leap, small step down. We are looking for an anchor that gives us confidence in the first step. Something that we know to a relative degree of certainty that we can trust right here and right now, so that our faith and our move towards it is not misplaced or misdirected. And then we find the next anchor and the next anchor. And then therein we find our renewal again and again. Anne Lamott writes, "My coming to faith did not start with a leap, but rather a series of staggers from what seemed like one safe place to another. Like lily pads, round and green, these places summoned and then held me while I grew. Each prepared me for the next leaf on which I would land, and in this way I moved across the swamp of fear and doubt." Small leap after small leap, taking time to get grounded, renewal after renewal, until we gain a larger sense of trust in where we are going. And so it's not enough for us to just name the pull, the call, the compass. We need to identify and name the anchor points that hold us safely and give us a chance to grow as well. Maybe we call them tradition, or community, or our close intimates of friends and families. Maybe it's the evidence of history. Maybe it's the evidence of the results of the small leaps we have taken before. Maybe it's just our sense of inner resolve or resilience. Or maybe it's a sense that we know we have something to give of ourselves when we hear another one cry out to the universe. Trust that somehow we are part of the answer of the something to that cry. Knowing that our faith in then is rooted in answering the needs and the cries of here and now. So here we are, emerging from a long, long, deep crisis made out of a whole bunch of interlocking and endless crises. One ends and another begins. But we are emerging again, called forward by our faith in something. Our work in these moments, as our heads poke up again, as we start to re-engage with communities, as we start to see it perhaps possible once again to build the world it is that we are dreaming about, our work is to ask and to answer those questions. What is it that keeps calling us forward? What keeps us going? And what is it in the here and the now and the moment that justifies our sense of trust, that lets us leap back into the work over and over again, even though the universe might fail us, and it will. Because in the naming of those things, it's there we find our sense of resolve. To look back in the face of the chaos of the cosmos, of the uncaring universe, and commit the ultimate act of defiance, the greatest act of human beauty, and love it all, just as it is, and every part that makes it up. Love it all just the same. May it be so. And like sands through the hourglass, so are the announcements of our lives as we prepare to depart. First and foremost, yes, coffee is back this week. It is available in the fellowship hall. We ask you to remain masked while you drink. Just pull down to sip for the time being. That's how we'll be doing it. Second, a reminder that this week on Wednesday starts the rental of our parking lots by the crew for the Oppenheimer film. That'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. We'll have a few spaces close to the church available during that time. If you have to come in for any reason and you are able to, you don't have any mobility issues, please park on the street if at all possible if you are stopping in. Immediately following the service, I believe right in here, we'll have a town hall meeting with Janet Van Cleve, our grounds chair, to talk about options for ongoing management of the health and care of the ponderosa pines that surround us and what those might be. If you're interested in the life of the trees and in preservation or the environmental issues they pose for us now in a changing environment, please be here for that discussion with Janet. And then this coming Saturday, Janet Van Cleve, our grounds chair, will lead a cleanup day for the grounds. Saturday the 12th, it'll start at 9 a.m., it'll go to about 4 p.m., and Janet promises that there are several tasks to accomplish, many appropriate for all different ages. So do stop by and help us clean up our beautiful grounds here and get ready for the spring. And now it is a moment to think about our offering. Once again, we will not be passing the basket this week. We do have our offering box in the back of the hall here, or you can give using the Givelify app on your mobile device that we have been using. For the month of March, all cash and undesignated funds that we collect will be given to a scholarship fund that is set up for the youth of our partner church in Fenyokut, Romania. That is set up for them so they can continue their secondary education attending one of the Unitarian high schools nearby them. Please take the following moments to think about your gift for this month or this week. Make it through the app or in the back of the hall at the end of the service. May whatever you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.